I'm going to move to, we have done some things right, but we have a lot of challenges we're still facing as a community. So I'd like to ask Brandi, can you talk with us a little bit about the challenges that we need to overcome?
Absolutely. Can you guys hear me? It doesn't sound like this microphone. Hello, you guys can hear me now? Awesome. As I was sitting here and listening to the other three questions, it dawned on me why this question was given to me as I listened to everyone. And I realized that we are definitely living in two different realities about the reality in Madison, Wisconsin, this liberal ideology and belief around this beautiful Overture Center and experience as whiteness. And for me, I'm sorry, that's not my reality. Living in Madison is not easy as a Black woman. So the challenges we face is getting business owners and entrepreneurs and folks with the money who invest in charity and different programs to understand and see that your reality is not my reality. That's a huge challenge. It's hard for people to see it. It's hard for people to understand what it means to move in this society, in this city, in this Black body of mine. It's very challenging. People are very judgmental, and our skin and my skin is seen as a weapon even before I open my mouth and move into your space. And I also want to go back to the idea of money and how money controls everything, and that how the value of money is placed above the value of people and humanity. And you see that even in business donations and contributions. And what I would like to point out is when folks donate to causes or programs or to nonprofits or campaigns, what we're really doing is saying you must walk this line, right? Like when folks donate to a cause, that means that you can't move too radical. You can't be revolutionary. You have to stay the course. And usually the course is a course of white frame of reference. So the work that we really need to do in our community, is hard for us to do it because we're not willing to challenge the status quo. And then when you have investors who invest in programs, it has to look a certain way. It has to be safe. I'm not allowed to say certain things, right, as a representative of your money. And that is a challenge. So we have a hard time moving in a direction that's effective in a way that is inclusive, because we love the word inclusive, don't we? We love to say that, hey, like on State Street, let's build these benches that's democratic and invite folks to chill and hang out and experience this State Street and Madison reality. And when the wrong people start showing up, we get uncomfortable. And then certain people decide to enforce their power and their ability to say, hey, out with those benches, screw who's affected, which is usually the homeless people and the ones without power and the ability to say, hey, I have nowhere to go. So I mean, there's a lot of challenges that we face in Madison. We are the worst city in the country to live when you're Black. I think it's hard for us to move from that reality sometimes. We think if we can write a $50,000 check to a program, we did our part. The disparities are still there. We are failing a huge group of our population, and we rationalize it by saying, well, they need to pull themselves up by their bootstrap. What bootstrap? How did you get to where you're at? How did you become an entrepreneur? How did you become an owner of a business and it flourished? And I'm just going to make a general statement that I'm sure that it was passed down, whether it was knowledge or money or resources or opportunity or uncles or cousins or a network of relationships, as Will spoke about. In our Black bodies, we come without that. We come without that backing and that assets and those resources. So when we talk about equity, and as Zach pointed out, it is about ownership, right? In the business world, ownership is yours. You own it, you control it, you set the rules, you set the policies, you set the procedures, the legislations, you set it. It is yours. So when we talk about being in the Black body and the person of color or immigrant or person that doesn't fit into this framework of whiteness, we're talking about lack of ownership and lack of power. So we don't have the power for due process. We don't have the power to build our own infrastructures. We don't have the power to say, hey, that hurts. I don't want this anymore. We don't have the power to stand up against our bosses and work, because that means we become a target and we have to get fired. And that's the end of all conversations. So I think the challenges for us is this illusion about our reality and this illusion about your whiteness. And that's the hard conversation that people don't want to have. You know, you're born, you breathe it in. You're born with this ability and this privilege to move around in these spaces without judgment, because people are waiting to see your character. Whereas when I walk into the room, there's assumptions and conclusions about me before I even speak. And if I don't align with your ideology and your way of speaking, and if I talk too loud, or if I use a cuss word, then I become this stereotypical black angry woman without you being able to understand and accept where that anger comes from. A lifetime of oppression and a lifetime of not being in control of my black body because you control it. With your systems and your politics and your money and your private agendas and capitalism, you control it. So even when we are elected, as Sambo is elected in a city council, he will be very limited on what he can say and do and how he can move. You can't be too pro-black, right? Because that makes you anti-white. You can't be too angry and in the face of the mayor, in the face of Chief Koval or people in power, because you would be challenging status quo. And in order for us to move to this place of social good, we have to see ourselves. And we have to see how we limit even the things that we say that we want to see change in. How we limit by our mere donation to a program, that ability of that program to move effectively and radically in a way to affect people's lives. So we donate $100,000 to a program for employment and training, but then we say, well, we need them people employed in 7 weeks. Huh? These are folks coming with barriers, mental wellness challenges, homelessness, domestic violence, no assets, no support, no family, no nothing, no transportation, lack of education, drug addiction, alcohol addiction problems. And then you look at us and say, if you can't fix these people, if you can't fix these people, then you can't have our money. So we have to move from this place of, oh, I'm just doing this from the goodness of my heart, and really look at the work that needs to be done. And it has to be not from a place of financial value and capital and profit. It has to be from a place of humanity, the place to serve someone who's vulnerable, who's disenfranchised, marginalized, who does not come to the table with the same power, authority, influence, and privilege that you come to the table with. And that's hard. Like, I'm sitting here listening to these conversations, and I'm sitting here listening to people analysis, and I'm like, oh my God, they don't get it. Sorry. You know, we can be friends and we can be allies, but we must force ourselves and challenge ourselves to see the reality of our reality. And even in nonprofit, like this complex that's moving and saying that we're doing this and doing that, but even in that we're limited because we're funded by the people who we're trying to move against. Think about that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So if we need to move to a place where we're donating without strings attached.
Yes.
My bad.
Thank you, because there are multiple realities in the room and multiple realities in this city. And if we don't know all those realities, then we're divided and we can't come together. And I think the question about ownership also raises a question about shared ownership. And what does shared ownership look like? So I am going to go to Greg, and then we'll come to M. Okay?